Let's talk limiting beliefs, the things that you believe about yourself in your subconscious or your conscious mind that are holding you back. This is one of the biggest things that create the biggest shift in terms of really creating the life that you want. I'm Jo, I'm a trauma informed coach, and I help women to take up unapologetic space in their lives. And a lot of women that I work with have the same kind of limiting beliefs. So, a limiting belief is something that we just believe to be true about ourselves and the world. And the way that we form those as is usually in childhood, particularly our core beliefs. Something happens or we're told something about ourselves, and then it becomes a belief. So you might have been told something about yourself that was so shocking by a parent or a bully or a sister or a caregiver in some form that you then took on and thought was true. Okay, so for example, I had a belief about my body not being okay, not being acceptable, because at a very early age, I was bullied and called fat. And at that point, that was an insult. And so that became a belief like my body is disgusting, my body is whatever. So limiting beliefs are repeated thoughts and they become something that becomes embedded in our subconscious. And what I want you to understand really, really early on about this is that limiting beliefs result in protective behaviors. So, an example of that for me was when I had that belief about my body is not okay. Okay, so what do I need to do? My protective behavior then became an eating disorder. My protective behavior then became making myself as small as physically possible. So, limiting beliefs result in protective behaviors. Now, I want to give you a real time example so you can actually start to work with this in your life and it feels like actually achievable. In coaching, we work with what is present in your life right now. So if you're up against a challenge, an issue, a roadblock, something you can't get past, that's what we work with. We don't just go back into the past and poke around. We really take a insightful look at, okay, this is where you want to go and this is what's blocking you. And quite often when we have that sort of what would I call it? Status. Like, I know I want to go here. I know I want to call in healthy love, but I keep on attracting unavailable men, for example. We want to be looking at the belief system that is underneath, usually in your subconscious, that is keeping you locked in that pattern. That pattern, on some level, is a protective behavior. Now, one reason for that could be okay, I actually have a deep, deep, deep belief that love hurts. So even though I say I want to call in healthy love, this actually doesn't feel achievable. And I know that love hurts. So what I'm going to do as my protective behavior is just prove that again and again and again. And I know that sounds crazy, but it actually is what we do until we heal these beliefs. And that is very, very, very possible. And the thing that coaching really supports with is that quite often we don't even know that we have these beliefs. For example, I remember being in a coaching session where somebody was asking me questions. They were asking me questions, asking me questions, and actually asking me questions. And eventually I got to this point where I said, I'm doomed. And I had no idea where it came from, but it was true. I could feel it in my body. My body felt, yeah, I feel like I'm doomed. Now, if that is my operating system, if that is the thing that's at the bottom of everything, is my belief was I was doomed, then how expansive am I going to be with my opportunities, my decisions, putting myself out there if I always think that's going to be the outcome, right? So I really want you to start to let this land for yourself. Where are you experiencing a roadblock in your life? Where do you feel stuck? Where do you feel frustrated? Where do you feel like, if I could just stop this pattern of XYZ, comparison, self doubt, criticism, whatever it might be, start to think about this, how it's showing up for you. So we have a limiting belief and then we have protective behaviors. Limiting beliefs result in protective behaviors. And all of this, because we're so delightfully human, happens mostly in the subconscious until we start to do this work. So start to think about, okay, I want to get here, but I'm here. what is stopping me? Like, what is the belief that I have that is keeping me stuck here? For example, say that you wanted to start a business. So you got the business over here. You're like, this is where I'm going, but you're over here and you're actually doing very little. Okay, what belief are your actions coming from? Well, actually, there's an underlying belief that it's not going to happen for me. Okay, what's underneath that? Well, I don't deserve good things. What's underneath that? I'm not good enough. Boom. If there's energetic charge, there's some kind of charge in the body, we know that belief is true. Okay, so I want you to really think about this. Like, what are the beliefs that I'm holding, even if they make no sense? For me, it did not make sense to me that I was holding a belief that I was doomed. And yet still I was, still I was. So we want to be investigating. And I say this all the time. If you ever work with me or you're in any of my workshops, curiosity is the energy of healing. So we don't want to judge ourselves. And we can be so quick to do that. Like, oh, I'm so stupid that I have this belief. That doesn't even make sense. No, that's not how we do it. It's like, oh, I'm so curious as to why that belief is there, right? Why is that belief there? What is it trying to do? And this is where going into parts work, going into inner child work, the kind of deeper processes that I do with clients can really help to heal, can really help to heal. Okay. So limiting beliefs, protective behaviors. So let's look at a real-time example. One of my clients, for whatever reason, again, we don't always need to know what the reason is in order to heal this pattern, had a belief that she was a loser. She had this belief and it felt true to her and it felt true in her body. And it came up because she wasn't actually taking the action that was on her vision. She was stopping herself. And when we investigated it, this belief came up. Okay. And so what I invited her to do was to, because our brains love evidence and the brain cannot tell the difference between a very well imagined thought and actual reality. I invited her to make a list of all of the ways that she was a winner in life, all of the ways that she was a winner, because this belief had been running in her unconscious, subconscious, totally unchecked for years. And what would happen is that her brain would then collect evidence for it. Okay, so here another way I'm a loser, another way I'm a loser, another way I'm a loser. Every time more charge, this is more true. And so what we want to do when we bring these things into the light of our awareness is to be like, okay, what if actually I'm a winner? What if the belief, the thing that I've been believing is just a repeated thought and it's not actually true? So when we made that list and she was able to step into that as an identity, then it's about, okay, so now how do I move from my new belief? If I really believed I was a winner, then what would I be doing that I'm not currently doing? And this is where everything changes. This is honestly where everything changes. So before, when I was back in my early days of self-development, I had this belief that there was something wrong with me. I wasn't being a stand for myself. I wasn't going for opportunities. I was dating people who were really unavailable. All of these things were happening because of that belief. But once I shifted that belief, then things started to change. Same for my clients. When we shift those beliefs, your actual behavior is no longer a protective behavior. It is an authentic behavior, an aligned behavior, a behavior that's going to actually help you to get to where it is that you want to go in life. And you deserve this. You deserve to have a fulfilled life. You deserve to rewrite these beliefs, my love. You absolutely do. So I want you to just sit with that, to really sit with that, to breathe into it. Think about the beliefs that hold charge for you. And then I want you to consider, and this piece is also so important. When my client started acting from the space of I'm a winner, her body has a response. She feels anxious. There's contraction, there's movement in her nervous system. And this is where most people back off because they think, well, that's it. Like I can't be a winner because it feels like this. But all that is your nervous system activating because there's a perceived threat. I've never gone through the world like I'm a winner. So it feels like a threat to do that. It feels like a threat to my identity. It feels like a threat to who I am. Okay, let me notice that and let me breathe. So you would take a big breath. You would let that, what is the word? Like really be received in your body. And you might use some other nervous system techniques that you know to come back to regulation. So you could squeeze every muscle in your body really tight and then let go. That's a nervous system technique. You might do box breathing, which is breathing in for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and letting go for 4. Sorry, holding out for 4. Right? You'd find some way to bring your nervous system back to security. And again, this is what we do in the work that I do with amazing women. It's like, okay, your body's having a response. Let's still take that action. Let's notice that response and name it as absolutely normal and to be expected. But then let's breathe. And this happened for me, the first time I ever did a video online, I had such a wound around visibility and being seen. And so when I posted it, of course, I had this reaction, and part of me wanted to take it down and all of those things. And so, could I breathe? Could I open? And could I recognize that I was really operating from a new belief? I used to have a belief that nobody cared. Nobody cared what I had to say. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to listen. It didn't matter. And again, I replaced that belief, right? So I really want you to start thinking about this and letting it land in your system. I'm going to do a little summary, and I would love for you to comment below if you're listening online. You comment on Spotify, or you can send me an email. Everything's in the show notes. Because declaring this for yourself is really, really, really powerful. So to recap, 96% of our behavior is subconscious. Our actions are actually our life. And so when we come up against a challenge or an obstacle, quite often it's because there is a limiting belief that we developed in childhood about who we are or what the world is that we're operating from. Limiting beliefs result in protective behaviors. So I'm going to be self-sabotaging, I'm going to be pushing you away, I'm going to be doing all the things subconsciously. When we heal the belief, we then get to step into new behaviors. And in order for us to do that in a way that feels sustainable, we also need to work with the nervous system. Can I breathe? Can I open? Can I know it's okay to feel anxious because I'm doing something new? But I'm operating now from the belief that I'm a winner, not a loser. And that's what I choose for myself. I'm operating now from the belief that I'm whole and complete and there's nothing wrong with me. And that's what I choose for myself. Okay, can you evoke that energy? Can you be in that energy and can you sustain that energy? Now, this is so much more easily done in community and with support. So if you want to find out more about that, then comment rise on anything that I'm putting out here and I will give you information about how I can support you. But know that this is completely normal and it is something that you can absolutely shift and change. I know because I have done it, and I know because I've watched hundreds of women do it too. So I'm sending you so much love. Let me know what lands, and I will see you really soon.